Taiwanese culinary identity was really based on its local heritage and, let's say, marvelous local produce. But more and more, you have a diversity in the restaurant's offering with a real blend of different cultural influences, Chinese, Japanese, Southeast Asian, but also food culture from all around the world.
To many restaurateurs, there are few accolades as satisfying as the recognition that comes with being mentioned in the Michelin Guides. In this week's edition of Taiwan Talk, I spoke with the Guide's international director, Gwendal, who joined us to talk about the longer-term impact COVID had on Taiwan's dining scene. Also in the program, we heard from one of Michelin's famed anonymous chief inspectors, who talked about how the group picked and chose which of Taiwan's numerous restaurants to recognize.
Taiwan has a distinctive voice and place on the world culinary map. It's showcasing a remarkable, inclusive, distinctive food style based on the local products, but also the authenticity of the food experience you can enjoy based on both the culinary heritage and maybe what is quite important to put a spotlight on is the incredible dynamism of the local food scene. And that the reason why I was saying that COVID was an accelerator, because Taiwan is a very strong food market with real local foodies. Restaurants, despite the COVID, were really resilient and they recovered well. But today, more than ever, you have an acceleration with new projects, a new generation of talented chefs, opening new ventures, exploring new food identities. And that the reason why maybe eating out in Taiwan has never been so interesting as today.
Okay, tell me about interesting. Could you quantify what interesting means to the Michelin Guide?
I had the opportunity to travel to Taiwan, starting 20 years ago, long before we established the first Michelin Guide selection over there. So I've been a privileged witness of the evolution of the food scene, more sophisticated, more creativity, more and more diverse. Since the inception of the Michelin Guide in Taiwan in 2018, not only the Michelin Guide expanded its scope, because there are a lot of very interesting food places blossoming everywhere across the island, but also because there are more and more diversity, more style, and it has been a continuous elevation for the local food scene with more than 50 restaurants at star level today.
Okay, now I'm going to roll back and refer to the first question you asked where you said that there were many obvious changes in the global dining scene. What were the most obvious changes Michelin Guide saw with the global dining scene, and how did that translate into Taiwan's dining environment?
Taiwanese culinary identity was really based on its local heritage and, let's say, marvelous local produce. But more and more, you have a diversity in the restaurant's offering with a real blend of different cultural influences, Chinese, Japanese, Southeast Asian, but also food culture from all around the world. And this has been made possible. Why? Because you have also a lot of Taiwanese chefs that have been traveling around the world, and they are coming back home, bringing new techniques, new influence. So that's one point. I will say the chefs are also real entrepreneurs in Taiwan. So they're there to open new ventures, new projects. And this is also a destination that is very attractive to food investors. So I think all that is fueling a real dynamic. And maybe it is only just the beginning when we see the emergence of a younger generation of talented chefs that are open to the world, that are using a lot of techniques, but still rooted in their culinary heritage, making the most of wonderful, product you may found. I think what is important also to say in Taiwan is that you can really travel the destination to find a lot of local, authentic food experience. And it can be, in some cases, quite accessible, sophisticated, refined, yet simple. I can compare with many other destinations in the world, but I've always been quite fascinated by Taiwan as one of the, let's say, hottest foodie destination, because local people are real food lovers. You know, they love to spend for good restaurants, for good food. The food culture is really, really, really strong. And I think this is really a catalyst because ultimately to push the quality of the restaurants, you need local discerning food lovers. And in Taiwan, you have plenty.
Wow. Okay. Now, what is it that makes Taiwan similar to other Michelin dining destinations, and what makes it different from other Michelin dining destinations?
But it's true to say that today there are a lot of gastronomic hubs that are emerging and that are, let's say, being more open to various cultural culinary influences. Yet I think in Taiwan, this is something that is very present. And I would say what is very interesting in Taiwan, and that's also contributing to make the destination a destination worth traveling for, is the authenticity of the food experience you can get. You know, it's not just a copycat of what you can find elsewhere, and can experience a real diversity, but always with the ultimate food quality. Sometimes in an informal setting, but with always a very warm welcome.
What direction does the guide see Taiwan's dining scene evolving in the next 12 to 18 months?
Now, of course, I can't foresee the future, but what is important is to say that if we look at the trends, what has been happening over the past, I would say, more than 10 years, we see the diversity still with a lot of authenticity. High-quality restaurants are blossoming across the highland, and that's also one of the reasons why the Michelin Guide gradually had to expand outside of Taipei as a city, to cover the new destination. And I think the Michelin Guide is still on its way to continue to explore Taiwan, but it is not yet over. We see new restaurants blossoming. I believe, let's say, observing the main trend that we will continue to have more and more diversity, a lot of creativity, and still more and more accessible, high-quality food. And ultimately, that's what the real foodies are looking for.
Okay. Would you like to introduce the Chief Inspector? I'm happy to let you have that privilege.
Of course, I think it's now time to hand it over to one of our regional Chief Inspectors, so in charge of the different destination of the Michelin Guide today, and especially Taiwan, that will be able to talk about, let's say, the local trends, because let's not forget that the value of the Michelin Guide is to have anonymous professional inspectors working on the field to make sure that they have no bias and that they can fairly assess the quality of the restaurants with universal criteria for the best possible advice to the readers.
Our exploration begins with extensive research, including a lot of things like, for example, reading local newspapers, magazines, countless online posts. However, among with diverse and tons of the research, nothing can replace with the insight gained from walking on the street. And we try our inspectors to walk on the street, go into the night market, or check everything, and step into the neighborhood eatery to explore firsthand the character, also to find the local hidden gem. That's the big resource we found these interesting places.
Okay, so I know that you have a criteria, but what qualities are you looking for when you first go, oh, that looks interesting. I think I want that restaurant in the Bib Gourmand section, especially. For our purposes, the Bib Gourmand is the one that attracts the most number of people, and it's the easiest to attract because of the price points. So what kind of qualities do your inspectors look for when they say, okay, that's definitely a possible Bib Gourmand restaurant?
Do the research, not just for the knowing the address, the restaurant name. We really make a very deep research. What's the food they serve? And then we would have the team discussions, also to check how the food looks like. So before we do the re-inspections, we need to undergo a long-term inspections, prospection process. And then we just to decide if it's worthy or not. Because just like we are just like consumer. When the normal consumer want to make a reservation at a restaurant, they definitely would do the research to see, they want to spend money at this restaurant. So we are just like the normal the consumers.
So what is a deal breaker for you? When you look at a restaurant, you put it on a list, what will make you decide that it's not actually worth visiting, after all?
I think the same is to go back to our criteria. Everything we always need to check the quality. So this is what our selections criteria matters.
And if I may add, the Michelin Guide selection is not about luxury places. It's not about the setting and the facilities. It's first and foremost about the food quality. And it's definitely what matters for the Bib Gourmand. And even if we take very seriously here the value for money. And I have to say that for me, the Bib Gourmand are sometimes a very accessible gateway to a local, authentic food experience. Because Bib Gourmand are real hidden gems. The inspectors, when they work on the film, they have to be really open-minded. And I have to say that it's sometimes the most exciting part of the job, that's the exploration to make sure that we are finding the best value restaurants.
Okay. What are the most interesting anecdotes involving eccentric restaurant owners or stall operators you might remember?
I think for our teams, the things that are very interesting, and this is also the standout of the Taiwan culinary scene, it would be the Taiwanese hospitality. We call that the 人情味 in Chinese. It's just something that our inspection team never forgets, especially in the south of Taiwan. One of my teams shared with me that in Kaohsiung, they remember the restaurant owners who, with a very moderate frankness to them, and advised the diner to ordering the right portions of the food with a balanced dish with the nutrition. And that's the things that they remember a lot, because when they travel to other destinations, there's nothing they can feel. There's something the female owner can really greet them like their mothers to serve the food. My personal experience would be when I was in Tainan, I was about to ordering food at a seafood restaurant, and I was stopped by a senior waitress who realized I was solo diners. She took the menu and urged me not to waste money. Don't waste your money. You are just solo diners. You can't finish it. Don't do that. These are things that I never experienced in other destinations, but only in Taiwan. That really impressed me, and that given me a very memorable experience.
You were listening to International Director of the Michelin Guide, Gwendal Poullennec, and one of the Michelin's chief inspectors, whose identity remains a secret. The inspector's voice has been altered digitally. And that does it for this week's edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Hope Go. You can catch this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts. Thank you for tuning in.